Hello, good morning, everyone. This is Gloria Zayans. I'm the technology guru for the Innovation Learning Network. We are very excited to bring you today's Exponential Technology Tuesday on virtual reality, the next healthcare experiential frontier. So let me set a little context before we jump into today's session. We hear so much about VR everywhere and its potential to change the way we interact. But until recently, virtual reality experiences required expensive and bulky equipment, and there's significant setup, and was often used for simulation, training, or for experience-based entertainment. Now, what changed this year is with the entrance of consumer-grade VR goggles, from HoloLens to HTC Vive, to Samsung Gear and even Google Cardboard, VR has hit a new wave of adoption, and healthcare is starting to realize the opportunity VR offers in patient care. So today we have the opportunity to hear from 4 distinguished experts on VR and its opportunities in healthcare. So now I would like to introduce our presenters today. We have Megan Moyer from Sutter Health, who will provide us with the VR technology overview, followed by Brennan Spiegel from Cedars-Sinai, who is a well-known healthcare virtual reality subject matter expert. We also have Andy Cundiff from the Carolinas Health Area Education Center, who will share with us healthcare use cases. And we will wrap the session with Fred Galstaun from Sensiks, who is going to highlight Sensiks platform as a technology innovation you should know about. But before we jump into today's session, I want to take you through a few housekeeping items. First, you have been muted upon entry to avoid background noise and disruptions. And we do ask that you please keep yourself on mute unless you are presenting. Second, we will hold off on all Q&A until the end, but you may feel free to use the chat box during the presentation for questions and comments, and make sure that you select everyone from the drop-down menu. Cynthia, Zaina, and myself will be monitoring the chat box throughout the session. And lastly, this presentation is a contribution to the Innovation Learning Network, which means you can live tweet throughout. So with that, I will hand the ball over to Megan Moyer, our very first speaker, to kick us off about virtual reality. Megan?
Hi, everybody. My name is Megan Moyer, and I work on the design and innovation team at Sutter Health, which is a large nonprofit health system in Northern California. But before this job, I was working at Sony, which is a giant consumer electronics product company known for products like these. But the team I was working on was really focused on these kinds of experiences. So we worked on wearables, robots, voice assistants, but most importantly, AR and VR. And so today what I'm going to talk about is a general overview of the technology, a little bit about the history of VR and current uses, best uses, and then where it's going. So you might hear VR, AR, MR, so just want to clarify what is the difference between these two things. So virtual reality is when you as a person in the what we call real world is immersed in a digital world fully, kind of cut off, wearing a head-mounted display, and you're immersed in a digital world, as you can see in this photo. And that can be CGI content, so computer graphics content like a video game, or it can be analog content, so 360-degree spherical video shot around so that you feel like you're in a new location. And this is really just a series of images that are stitched together in a sphere, and this is kind of more of a passive consumption of being in a place versus interactive like a video game. And then augmented and virtual reality, or what you might sometimes hear as called mixed reality, is when digital content is overlaid on the what we call real world in front of you. And it can overlay and it can also interact with the world around you. And so multiple people can have the same shared viewing experience. And this is really exciting. And Microsoft HoloLens is one of the most famous devices that's out on the market and being developed right now. So a little bit about the history of VR. So human beings have always had a craving to have a sense of being somewhere else. So as early as the 1700s, the word panorama was coined by a painter named Robert Barker. who created these cylindrical paintings that didn't have a narrative at all. It was really just a sense of you could go into these buildings called cycloramas and immerse yourself and feel like you're in a different world. And then in the 1950s, with the advent of cinema, these immersive experiences use different projectors to feel like you were in an immersive world that was also in motion. And so one of the most famous is Disney's Circle Vision, which I grew up going to as a kid because I grew up in Florida. And you really just felt like you're in this other world. And right now we have IMAX and, planetariums and things like that, where it's just a really immersive sense of being in a new place. So then we had the advent of handheld stereoscopic devices and toys, really, on the Viewmaster being the most famous in the 80s, growing up with this as well. But even in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, there were actually VR headsets and VR arcades. So VR existed for many years. It couldn't find a home in terms of a commercial success because the technology was too expensive, as Gloria mentioned, and it was really hard to create really high quality content that really felt immersive. Until the past year, so we have had a lot of initial success with a range of devices, ranging from the cheapest on the left, Google Cardboard, all the way to the PlayStation VR, which is the Sony version. And so the ones on the left, the Gear VR and the Cardboard, are really they hold a mobile phone, and so that's the computing power. But it can be a good entry if you've never experienced VR. It has easy access for a wide number of people, as it's affordable. However, if you're ever sat really close to a television screen, it feels a little bit like that. Like you can really see the pixels. It doesn't necessarily feel immersive. You might not want to spend a ton of time with that because it can kind of hurt your eyes a little bit. But the ones on the right, Oculus Rift and Sony PlayStation VR, really have a much higher resolution. They plug into either a gaming console or a high-end PC, and so you really get the sense that you're immersed in another world. And I highly recommend trying these if you haven't tried this as a VR experience. So some of the best uses for VR really fall for me into emotional benefit and practical benefit. And I'm just going to walk through some of the top-level examples of these, and then other panelists will talk specifically about healthcare. So first and foremost, it's fun. So it's entertaining. So gaming and entertainment is right now the biggest use of VR. You can be an avatar. You can be another character in a world in the video game, looking around. You can grab the steering wheel. You can see your hands. So it's a totally new way of feeling like you're playing a game. But then you can also, on the right, have shared viewing experiences. So you could watch sporting events with your friends or concerts and things like that. One of the best emotional benefits is this feeling of escape and feeling like you can be somewhere else. And this can be really good for if you're isolated or lack mobility. So in hospitals or in jails, or simply for anyone who wants to go to places that they've never been able to go, like under the ocean or into outer space, or getting the sense of hiking a trail on a steep cliff that maybe you wouldn't do on your own. Another benefit is creativity and expression. So Google has a really great app called Google Tilt Brush, where you can do 3D interactive painting in a world around you and create all sorts of 3D artwork using digital tools. And on the right is an interesting use of, it's a VR art installation where it's a family dinner called The Doghouse. It's kind of a play, but you go and you sit at this table and you put on a headset and you're showing up at an awkward family dinner, and each of the headsets is mapped to a different character, so you can have 5 different experiences at the same dinner. So new kinds of art installations and expressions like these will continue to arise as people figure out what's the best way of telling stories in VR. And another emotional benefit, and this one is talked about the most and probably has a lot of the most use in healthcare, is empathy. So really feeling like you're in someone else's shoes. This is an example that Excedrin did to create what it's like to have a migraine. And so all the different, spots and dizziness and vibrations and confusion that one feels. And so they would give it to the family members of people who had migraines and really created a shared sense of experience and empathy to really understand what it's like. And again, journalism and news are really exploring creating empathetic experiences. Philanthropy is another huge way of really, showing and versus telling, which is powerful in VR. And then some practical benefits. So VR is really great for building expensive things at a low cost where you can change your mind before you invest in it. So architecture, automotive, being able to change your mind and explore what this 3D space will feel like as if you're in it. Shopping is changing retail experiences. So virtual shopping malls are starting to come on board. And there's a Kickstarter campaign on the right now for a grocery shopping experience where it's a live capture of the grocery store in your neighborhood, let's say. So you can feel like you're there and pick out things on the shelf that you want in VR. And one of the most widespread uses of VR is training and education. So the military has been using this for many, many decades, figuring out ways of doing combat scenarios at a safe and cost-effective way. So that the troops are prepared when they actually get out into the real world. And this can also be used for occupational safety and hazards training. And you could imagine operating rooms and surgeries and any sort of thing where you need training that's safe and effective at a low cost. And then finally, I'll just touch on healthcare. And I know we have other panelists going into depth, but one of the most interesting I've seen in healthcare is really looking at pain relief. A company called First Hand Technology is looking at helping with burn victims going through treatment. And actually they've shown that using VR while this is happening lowers pain more than opioids do. So it's really, really exciting in healthcare as well. And so where is it all going? Well, right now it's really, your head is immersed in a different world. So audio, visual, but how do you get the sense that your whole body is immersed in this other world? So there's haptic suits. So haptic just means touch. So vibrations, sensory feelings on your body, different ways of feeling like you're bumping into walls or being hit by something to make it more interactive and immersive. And then contraptions that help you feel like you're flying through the air and wind on your face or riding a bike. So there will be layers of sensory experiences that will be added to just having your eyes and ears involved in these other worlds. Again, there's an example even to the level of smell. So people are exploring masks that look kind of silly if you look at the image on the right, but that generate odor. So you could smell smoke as something explodes, or smell grass, or feel wind on your face, and sensations like this. So this will be really interesting in the future. And also untethering from wires. So right now there's, we need to make batteries smaller and be able to untether and then move around in different spaces while wearing VR. So one example is the Void, which is a theme park that's opened up in the last 6 months in multiple cities, where it's a warehouse space where you can move around different rooms and physically mapped to the digital world. So it brings the kind of digital and physical together. And then things like Six Flags has roller coaster VR experiences where you feel like you're in a digital world even though you're moving in the real world. And these are really exciting. But there need to be more fluid interactions. So how do you bring your hands, for instance, into the digital world and really feel like you're there? And so Oculus has these touch controllers where you can actually sense your fingers moving in the digital space, such as giving a thumbs up, which is really important for Facebook. And then lastly, the most important move in VR, I think, in the future will be this social platform. So how do we connect with each other? Right now, it's kind of, you're isolated in your own world, in a digital world, but how do you go into these digital worlds and connect with other people? And so there's kind of a race to see who can create the most engaging social platforms. Second Life has been around for years just on, computer gaming, but, and what's good about that is they have users create their own content, because actually generating CGI content is really expensive and time consuming. So AltSpace VR is one of the biggest social VR platforms right now. And obviously Facebook has a stronghold here, and it'll be interesting to see what develops. But developing things like eye contact are really important. How do you actually feel like you're present in these worlds? Right now it's mostly digital avatars. But the most exciting development is when we can get our own 3D selves into the digital world. So this is an example of 3D volumetric video capture. And this will allow, right now, if you're taking 360-degree video around you, it's flat and it's passive consumption of it. It's kind of, you can't really interact with it. You can't walk around it. But with 3D volumetric video capture, you can walk around this person. You can interact with them from multiple angles, and it really becomes much more immersive and interactive. And finally, I just want to point out, we talk a lot about head-mounted displays and kind of virtual reality as being something your face is in, but there are things called immersive VR. So there are caves and rooms and domes that you can feel like you're immersed in a new space with other people without feeling cut off wearing a sort of headset. And so this is myself and my coworker Katie on the right at South by Southwest this year, and it was this Sony developed a cube where you could go in and jump up and down and travel to different locations around the world. So this was us in Switzerland. And it's really exciting. I hope that this has been a really good overview. I know it covered a lot, and I'm excited to hear more about healthcare use cases from the other panelists, so thank you.
Thank you so much for the great overview, Megan. And now we will switch over to Brennan to take us through the healthcare perspective.
Okay, well, thanks for that introduction. Hopefully you can see my screen projecting right now. So we're going to switch gears and talk a little bit more about healthcare use cases of virtual reality. And I've entitled this Lessons Learned Using VR for Patient Care. At Cedars-Sinai, we've now treated over 500 patients all together using virtual reality as a therapeutic intervention to help with a wide variety of conditions. We've been focusing on pain, and I'll talk a little bit about our experiences using it for pain management, but we've also been thinking about it for other conditions like high blood pressure. And we've just completed a study using it for high blood pressure where the systolic pressure dropped by 7 points over the course of 12 weeks of VR treatment. So there's lots of examples. I'll talk about just a few of them today, just to scratch the surface. And by way of introduction, I want to show this picture. This is a photograph from one of our rooms in our hospital at Cedars-Sinai. And we have the largest hospital in the Western United States, and one of the first hospitals in the country to have private rooms. But as nice as this room might seem, from a hospital perspective, clearly it's not a place of rest or a place of healing, frankly, for patients who are spending time in a room like this. This is a place where patients often suffer. They can suffer grievously, suffer physically, suffer emotionally, suffer socially isolated, potentially even stigmatized by their illness. So this is not a place where people want to come. I took another picture of what it looks like from the patient's perspective. And all day long, if the patient isn't up walking around, this is essentially what they're looking at throughout the day in these four walls. Every so often, somebody like me walks by and stares at them, maybe not smiling a whole lot, and we disappear and we come back again. And this is basically the ebb and flow of the day for a patient in the hospital. So we were aware of all of the exciting advances in using virtual reality in other industries, obviously for gaming. And we've just seen the expansion of use cases that VR is being used for. And we thought maybe we could use this in the hospital. Maybe we can provide patients an opportunity to go beyond the four walls of their biopsychosocial jail cell, which is essentially what a hospital room is. And maybe we can bring them to fantastical destinations, like flying a helicopter over Icelandic fjords, or maybe sit on a stage of a Cirque du Soleil performance, or to sit on a beach and meditate. So this is an example of one of our patients who is experiencing VR for the first time. And really, pictures speak 1,000 words, and the pictures matter. We also do rigorous research, and I will show you what happens when we do this over hundreds of people rather than one individual. But it's still useful just to understand the individual stories. And we have a collection of videos now that you can get online on a site called virtualmedicine.org. And on that website, which I'll come back to later, there is a series of videos where you can see firsthand how our patients are reacting. This particular young man has sickle cell disease, and he's in the hospital with severe pain. Sickle cell can be a very painful condition. They're called pain crises. And you can't necessarily tell that from this moment. So I do have a brief video, and I hope it will play. I think it will. And I hope you can hear it. That shows how we are interacting with this particular gentleman. And there's another woman in this brief video who has advanced cirrhosis. And she has significant pain too. And in both cases, we use virtual reality to transport them away from their hospital room. So we'll see if it helps with the pain or not. You'll tell us.
Yes.
And we'll go from there. Okay, any questions about that? Pull that down over your eyes now. Should load up.
Whoa.
What do you see?
Horses.
Yep, okay. And over the bridge. Is that working?
Yes.
What's happening now?
The helicopter, waterfalls.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever been to Iceland?
No.
With the music and everything, it's real peaceful. Oh, it's people. Hey. Cool.
So what'd you think?
It's pretty relaxing.
Uh-huh.
Especially with the music and everything, and then the different scenery. Like, there was this one part where it's like a waterfall. You're sitting in a cave,
Right.
and it's a waterfall right next to you. Almost made me forget I was here, like, because you're there.
Right.
It's like you're really there. You're hearing the waterfall, and everything is like you look around, and it's the whole scenery.
Right.
It's like you're immersed in it.
How did it make you feel?
Relaxed. Very relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't thinking about the pain.
You weren't?
No, I wasn't.
Really?
I was just thinking about being there
Uh-huh.
and having a good time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
We'll let Dr. Herman know.
Okay. Thank you. Thank
That's,
you.
Good. Okay.
Yes, but I really did like it. I enjoyed it really much.
Excellent.
Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
taking me.
Okay. So for some reason, I'm not able to advance it out of the screen. There we go. Okay. So apologize for that. Hopefully you're able to see that and hear that. If not, then maybe somebody can let me know if it didn't come through. But that's an example, and really the pictures are powerful. And as I said, there's more videos available online to sort of see how this works. Now, what he was looking at that particular moment was a variety of different visualizations. This is one of the visualizations that we use. It's called Anxiety Reliever, and it was developed by Applied VR, which is a VR company focused on therapeutic VR here in Los Angeles. And this is a beach scene where you interact with the environment, and there's a voiceover script, which with a mindful meditation kind of a dialogue. And we find it's very helpful for many of our patients. Now, we recently did a study to evaluate whether or not virtual reality actually improves pain. And we did this study initially with 50 subjects, and we measured their baseline pain before they received VR and then after VR. And this was a one-time treatment. And then what we did is we compared it to another group where we used a two-dimensional experience on a high-definition close proximity screen, and they got to relax in different natural environments. And in that group, there also was a reduction in the pain. But the difference was significant and in favor of the VR. So the immersive sort of 3D VR provided more pain reduction than the patients in the control group. And when we looked at it a different way, which was whether or not there was a clinically important response, we found a 65% response in the VR group versus a 40% response in the control group. Okay, that's a difference of 25%. And in medicine, we use a statistic called the NNT, which is the number needed to treat. And there's a calculation to come up with that number. And in this case, the number needed to treat is 4. Now, if you look at the number needed to treat with opioids, it's anywhere between 4 and 7, depending upon which study you look at. What that means is for every 4 people that we use VR on, instead of a control condition, there's 1 additional person who has a clinically significant benefit. So it's a pretty powerful response that we were able to see. Since this study, we have just completed another study, which we think is the largest randomized control trial to date in virtual reality, where we use the VR throughout the hospital stay, not just a one-time treatment, but continuously. And we're going to report those data soon, but I can tell you that it's a positive study, again, in favor of virtual reality. This is the cover of Clinical Neuroscience from the January edition of this year. And this is a study we did where we did a meta-analysis of all of the randomized controlled trials published to date for inpatient applications. And if we kind of dig into this just for a second, we found that there were quite a few papers that have looked at this over many, many years. We're certainly not the first. What we're doing that's different really is just taking advantage of the newer technology that's scalable, easy to clean, easy to move in and out of hospital rooms, and do it in a larger patient population. But there are 11 previous randomized controlled trials that address everything from burn dressing changes, as we heard from the last speaker, and obesity and cancer pain and so on. And the overall kind of review finds that VR is effective in most of the studies so far. It's well tolerated. There can be vertigo in about 5 to 10% of our patients, but it's usually very short-lived and is discontinued as soon as they take the headset off. That's usually a consequence of sort of poor latency in the performance of the VR itself. However, the study quality of the published literature is still variable, and we need better, higher quality studies. And I'll come back to that in a second about how we need to really advance the science. Now that we know that we have the technology, how do we advance the science of medical virtual reality? A key lesson that we've learned is that if virtual reality is a therapy, then we now need a VR pharmacy. We need to have shelves, essentially, of evidence-based VR content that as a physician, I can map to my individual patients, because no 2 patients are alike, and they have different psychometric profiles and different medical profiles and sociodemographic profiles. And we need to have a way to figure out what is the best prescription. Because, you know, we talk about VR like it's just one thing, but VR is like a syringe. It's not, the syringe isn't what matters, it's the medicine that goes through the syringe that matters. VR is just a platform. What we need to know is what content to put through that platform. So we're working on some approaches now, including some software that can allow us to profile individual patients, reach into a VR library of content, a VR pharmacy, if you will, and pull back just the right prescription for that individual. We're working on that. We'll have more to report soon. What we've also been doing is taking the 360 VR camera from Samsung and giving it to families to take home so that they can project where they are, and then patients in the hospital can actually be with their family. So on our website, we have one video that I have loaded up here, but I'm just not going to show for sake of time, where we transport a young man back to his home, where he actually can sleep in his own bed. He can be with his family at the park or at the dinner table. And we're now starting to do this with a new company that we're familiar with in the Netherlands called Yellowbird Labs. And they have some really great live stream technology. And have nothing to do with the company other than I like their technology. And we're now going to be using that in a wider study, including in pediatric patients. So this is, I just skipped over a slide that you can look at online. Now, this is worth spending a moment to look at as I wrap up my brief comments. This is a video of us, again, using VR with patients here at Cedars-Sinai. And what I was amazed by this was that it had, 4.3 million views. It now has, I think, almost 4.5 million views. And I show this to you for 2 reasons. One, there's just overwhelming interest in this whole area of research. And recently, we were covered by a number of media outlets, including the Wall Street Journal. And that's very exciting. But what we also noticed as we looked at this particular video is there were over 2,500 comments left. And we looked carefully at those comments and decided to approach this like a research project. And what we are able to do is actually evaluate all of those comments using kind of a mixed methods type of approach and identify consumer sentiment about where we are now with the use of virtual reality in healthcare. And this is more than you can go through on a brief talk, but what this is showing is a map of both the positive and negative concerns people have and the positive sentiments and sort of neutral concepts. And we found that users of Facebook in this case, had tremendous insights about what the potential concerns are and also the potential benefits and use cases far beyond what we could ever have imagined. And we're now, this is in press, this will be published soon, and we view it almost like a blueprint for where medical VR research needs to go next. So we will be presenting this soon in full detail. I'll just end by discussing another example of VR where we move outside of the hospital and into the community. And I mentioned this earlier, can virtual reality reduce high blood pressure, in particular at a church in South Los Angeles. We worked with Pastor Kelvin Sauls, who's a real inspirational leader in the West Adams district of Los Angeles. And he's been struggling with high blood pressure in his population of parishioners. And he views his role as a spiritual leader as also a health leader. And we've actually worked with him to create a culturally tailored blood pressure management program in virtual reality and have been testing it. And there's an article in the LA Times, you can learn more. And we've just recently completed our initial pilot study and demonstrated a significant reduction in blood pressure alongside with other multimodal interventions like behavioral interventions. And this will be something we'll be discussing more soon. In that particular VR experience, patients first start in a kitchen where they learn about where salt lives in their diet. And they can then learn about how it affects their kidneys, their arteries, their heart, and their brain through three-dimensional VR fly-throughs. And it's very compelling to see how your body can be damaged by high blood pressure and how it can be damaged by salt. And then after that, they return to the kitchen and are given alternative meals that have less salt. And it's a training program over a series of weeks. I just want to end with this slide. It's been really gratifying to do this work, unexpectedly gratifying. I hadn't even heard of VR 3 years ago. And since then, we think, the largest documented VR cohort in the world, as far as we know from published studies. And Bloomberg covered this, and it received the Webby Award for the best technology on the internet in 2017. I hadn't even heard of the Webby Award before, but evidently we won it. So that's very exciting for us. I mentioned that we have a website called virtualmedicine.org. And on March 28th and 29th, this now says 29th, but we've extended this due to popular demand to a 2-day conference. We're going to have a international conference dedicated to medical and healthcare uses of virtual reality. And we've invited some of the top speakers in the world and gratified that they're all coming. And you can learn more. And this is next March. Registration is open now if you are interested in joining. And we have a limited number of tickets that are available. So just wanted to let you know about that. And finish with this slide. And I'm showing this to you because this type of work requires a tremendous amount of expertise from many, many people. This is a very rigorous and difficult area to work in to scientifically prove out how virtual reality works. So I just want to credit all the different people that have been involved in this kind of research, and also thank Cedars-Sinai and thank you guys for inviting me today. So if anyone in the Los Angeles area has patients who are maybe eligible, you can certainly contact us and we're happy to talk to you. So with that, I'll hand it over and thank you for your attention.
Wow, thank you so much, Brennan, and congratulations on the Webby Award.
Thanks.
That's a major, major accomplishment. So with that, we're going to hand this over to Andy from the Carolinas.
Okay, excuse me. I'm going to be talking to you for the next 10 minutes about what we are doing with immersive technology in medical education. I don't have as many slides as everybody else does so far, so if you're getting close to lunch, you can thank me later. But basically, we have a number of projects that we've been working on, and we are not quite yet ready to give out any data just yet because some of these projects are still very much underway and is still in the future of being completely developed. So with that said, I would like to just kind of talk about who we are, Carolina's Healthcare System in Charlotte AHEC. Charlotte AHEC is the Area Health Education Center, and we provide continuing medical education to thousands of medical professionals in the Charlotte area, in Charlotte, North Carolina. And recently, and within the past 2 years, we've been getting into using augmented reality, virtual reality, 360-degree video as a means for a new type of education to deliver to our students and medical professionals across the region. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is the camera that we're using right now, and this is the GoPro Omni 360-degree video rig. It's similar in fashion to the camera that Brennan Spiegel just mentioned, with the exception of that it has 6 GoPro Hero 4 cameras in an array. And so as you can see in the picture here, one on each side of a cube, and this allows you to get a really high resolution type of video out of it versus the smaller consumer-based cameras. The difficulty with that, and what has been in the difficulty in the past with capturing 360-degree video with multiple cameras, is being able to have all those cameras synced up and at the same time, fire at the same time. They all have the same resolution, they all have the same settings. Having all those 6 different cameras working at the same time has always been a real difficult hurdle to get over. But what's great about this camera is that all cameras are connected to a central brain unit. And so camera 1, which might be on the top here, its settings, it's the master, and it connects to the central brain and says, hey, the rest of the cameras, you need to be at the same settings as I am. So that way, everything is completely exactly the same when the cameras fire, and they all fire at the same time too, and that's also been a problem in the past. If camera 1 fires a little bit earlier than camera 6 does, then you're going to have a big problem when you go to edit. So we're using that, and mainly indoors, and to get a sense of what 360 video is, and I'm glad that it was mentioned previously in one of the other presentations. It is considered a form of virtual reality. Some of the pros out there will argue with you that it's not virtual reality because you can't really interact with it, so it's not, the interactivity is just not as robust as traditional 3D virtual reality. There have been some progressions with software companies like Unity, that is a game engine that allows you to bring in 360-degree video into an interactive space where you can add things to it. You can add 3D models to a existing virtual 360 video. So if you wanted to put in a virtual bird that was flying over in a scene that you took of a park, you could do that. And that also adds more interactivity, adding buttons and adding things that the user can interact with when they normally wouldn't. So you don't see that sort of interactivity when you look at a 360 video on something like YouTube or Vimeo. So to get a sense of the difficulties that we go through with 360-degree video, I have a quick video, a 2D video of what it's like to do editing in 360 video, if that, oops, that did not play. Okay, so here's camera 1 and then camera 2, and each highlighted part is what the camera is picking up. Camera 3 picks up the top area. Camera 4 picks up this little area. Camera 6 picks up this side, and actually that's camera 6 picks up that side as well. And the other one was 5. And so what we have to do is we have to find common pixels between each camera field. So 4 needs to find a common pixel with camera 6, and 6 is finding common pixels with 1. And so that's where you see these little green boxes or orange boxes. The green box lets you know that, hey, you've got some really good pixels there that are in common with the other one, with the other camera. And then if it's orange or red, then you're in trouble and it's going to look terrible. So you have to figure out what common pixels do we have to make this a smooth looking video. So basically you're taking 6 videos from 6 different cameras, bringing them into the software and trying to stitch all 6 cameras together, 6 video files together in order to make a sphere. If you are not getting this at a high resolution, at a high frame rate, your viewer has a much likely chance of getting motion sickness, just because the brain can really only see so fast and so slow. Once the frame rate starts to dip below 60 frames a second, they'll start to experience some nausea and motion sickness, and you really don't want that. We want our users to be experiencing really high quality footage and material and content, so that way when they're in there, they want to come back in. So this little excerpt here, let's go to the next slide, is from a patient safety video series that we have put together. It's a series of 5 different scenarios of something that the surgeon has done wrong. And the audience is going to be for learning healthcare professionals, people that, professionals that maybe have never been into an OR, or they are learning about health, being in the healthcare profession, or they are surgeons or residents or anybody that falls into those categories. So 5 different scenarios, basically for a retrieval of a foreign object. The surgeon leaves a foreign object, in this case it's a sponge, and maybe the sponge counts weren't done correctly, and the surgeon says, well, no, we're good, don't worry about it, I always count correctly, and I'm pretty sure we got it done. And obviously it's not the case, and the sponge was left in. And so the next scenario is doing the retrieval correctly and not doing it correctly. So it gives the user a really good sense of the common mistakes that happen in a OR suite. And I'm going to see if I can pull it up real quick. Hopefully this works. So I'm going to spin the video just a little bit so you can see what's going on. Here, for instance, a tech has walked in and has provided a distraction to another tech. And with the video, you can see the entire OR, everything that's going on. I am hiding behind this cart here, so luckily you're not able to see me. And I'll just keep on going. I won't try to make anybody sick, because I'm sure doing this looks kind of funky going through the webinar. So each scene or scenario consists of 2 different scenes, a correct and an incorrect. And it takes quite a long time to get this all put together. So there are some lines that you can tell, like right here, there's a little stitch line where it doesn't match up correctly. It takes forever to get these things stitched, but nobody's going to really care about that. Let's focus on what's going on in the field of view. And you can actually zoom in pretty well here and see what's going on. I'm still zooming, and that's about as far as I can go. So I'll let that finish up. Get back to my course, it's bumped out. Sorry. There we are. Okay, so then the next one, we're working with our simulation center here at Carolina's healthcare system. We have a large amount of residents that come through our simulation center. We have multiple different labs at the simulation center. This one pictured is the adult patient lab. We have a pediatric lab and an OR suite lab. What we wanted to do is to be able to present these environments to the learners, for them to be able to come to the simulation center without ever having been to the simulation center. So it's a great tool for them for when they come in and they've never been there before. They understand such small things like where's the stool underneath the patient's bed, or where are the gloves, where are, what's the monitor do, and simple things like that, to where when they get in, they already have answers to questions that they would have normally had. And it's going to speed up the process of them coming in and learning more. And if I can pull that up real quick, I could show you. So for instance, this is our pediatric simulation lab. And so for the head wall, you would click on the head wall and you get a close-up version of what that looks like and a little bit more information to it. This is something that can be viewed in a virtual reality headset, just like the previous videos we have. But we do understand that there's going to be, it's going to be really difficult trying to throw on like a Gear VR or something like that to every single resident that's going to come through and have them understand this and know how to work it, and or expect them to do it at home. It's just not, it's not feasible. It's not scalable. So we believe that this is going to be more for the home, not the home use, but for desktop use in case they do want to go home and try it out. We're not in the position at the moment to be providing Google Cardboards or any kind of other VR headsets to thousands of medical students that are coming through. So as you can tell, we've got the monitor, and this bed can be used for maternity or pediatric. So some really good information in there. And one last time. Okay. And so what else we're doing, we've got some other things in here that I wasn't able to put in, like I mentioned. We are looking at augmented reality and virtual reality for patient education. We do have an augmented reality app that is deployed in a urology department. We're waiting on results for that, on how that works out. And basically what it is showing specific disease kidney states to the patients in an augmented reality setting. And we're hoping that it's going to help improve patient education and help those patients better understand what's going on with them, instead of a normal doctor, a normal urologist, just drawing on a grease board or drawing on a piece of paper, hey, this is your kidney, you got a kidney stone, you have a kidney tumor over here. And so we're hoping, and we really strongly feel that the augmented reality is going to help them be able to spin the kidney around, getting close to that tumor or the kidney stone, and really get a better understanding of what's going on with them. We're also looking at virtual reality for nurse burnout. It is an IRB-approved study, so we're gathering participants to join in for our virtual reality study and seeing how that affects them. Because when they're burned out, and when the nurse is burned out, and then they come into work, and they're more than likely going to provide less care than they normally would if they weren't burned out. And it's just something that happens. It's something that it's going to be difficult to get around, and it's almost something like some of the things that Brennan Spiegel is doing with improving people's mood and improving people's anxiety levels and things like that. So if we can bring those anxiety levels down in our nurses, then they're going to give better care to their patient. So it's kind of a situation where if we take care of point A, then point B is going to hopefully going to take care of itself as well. And VR for a alternate focus. That's our way of saying distraction, because it just sounds better, we think. And one of the things that we're doing with the alternate focus is to not necessarily give it to the patient that has some sort of painful condition that they're dealing with. It's more, we're looking at it from a different angle to what if there's another kid in the room that needs to, like his brother maybe is in the hospital bed. Let's give the sibling something that they can have their attention diverted to in order for the doctor to help talk to the parents about what's going on with their other child. That's all I got for right now. I can keep on talking, but we've got too many other things that just aren't able to put out there just yet. So thanks so much for listening in, and find me on Twitter, find me on LinkedIn, give me an email. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Andy. I appreciate you sharing the use cases. Now we are going to transition over to Fred to share with us about about the Sensiks technology platform. And since we are running a little short on time, I just want to invite everyone to drop your questions into the chat box, and we will go ahead and take these offline and ask the speakers to respond to them. So Fred?
Hi, yeah. Hi, thank you. Yeah, my name is Freddy Galstaun. I was invited by our partner Reshape to tell a little bit more about our venture, sensory reality. First of all, I would like to tell you a little bit how it all started, because we just talked a little bit, and he was talking about a burnout. I had a burnout in 2011, and I was really, I didn't have a lot of energy. I had some negative thoughts, and I could not relax anymore. So I was laying on the beach in Holland, in Scheveningen, and at that moment I started to relax again. For the first time in a long while, I felt I was relaxing. My mind was positive again. And I thought, how is it possible? Because I have 5 senses. I lay on the beach, I do nothing. My brain gets some input, and somehow some signals are released that I'm starting to relax and feel positive. So I was kind of getting a little bit obsessed with the idea about how would you be able to simulate that. And so I started a little bit to focus on what was happening around me. So it was the sunlight. It's very nice, very bright. It was also warm on my skin. I smelled the sea. I could also hear the waves. It was a nice calming rhythm. Also, I felt the wind on my skin. And I felt there was a flagpole, and the winds were blowing, and there was a rope ticking in the wind. And it was just like a full sensory symphony of modern nature, I thought. And I thought, wow, it would be great if you could be able to simulate that. So that was what I was doing the past 6 years. I started to contact some knowledge based in Netherlands, like University of Delft and the TNO. And we got the help from 3 professors, 3 neuroscientists, that explain us a lot about what it actually means to experience. So now 6 years further, we launched sensory reality. We introduced it to the market, and would like to explain you something about what it's based on. This is a nice quote from Kevin Kelly. He's a co-founder from The Wired, and he said, "Experiences are going to be the new currency." But if you think about it, what is actually an experience? Maybe people know him, Mr. Morpheus from the Matrix. We people, we have 5 senses, and we feel, we hear, we smell, we taste, and we can see. But yeah, what is happening actually? What is happening is there are electric signals being sent to your brain. So for instance, if I smell something, the scent molecule is being changed into an electrical vibration, and my brain reads the vibration and he responds on it. So a signal is actually like a wave. It's a pulse. It's a pulse of energy. And if you see this presentation I did to some school from a little bit younger people, so I thought it would be a nice one to get the atmosphere a little bit going. I thought it would also be a good idea to show you here today, because our life is all based on a up and down movement. It's a wave. So the wave is being transformed after all in a heartbeat, and then you get you breathe. So you're breathing in, you're breathing out. You get born, you grow up, you learn how to walk, and even the walking movement is like a wave. So actually, it's a little bit like you have the day and the night. So you have energy and you have absence of energy. So it's actually plus and minus. It's zeros and ones. These zeros and ones are being interpreted by your brain, and they activate a part of your brain, and your brain tries to form a reality out of the input it gets. And that process, that is what is called experiencing. So if you look at what brings the energy, in the end it's the sun. The sun, it shines on the planet, and the plants, they will make oxygen out of it, and you breathe the oxygen. So actually you're breathing the sunlight. So you eat the plant and you get more energy. So you're eating actually the sunlight, which is being transformed by the plant. So if you transfer this a little bit to nature, for instance, there is, if you see this example, there's the sunflowers. It's in the wind, in the sun, and it will open up. So whenever you get sun, the flower opens up. You get energized by the sun. If you look on the right, there's also a little plant with his head down. He doesn't get any sun. So he's getting a little bit depressed, you can say. So if you transfer it to a human, so if you take the light, it's like the activation of the brain. This is what gives you energy. This is what gives you more life. This is what gives you more happiness. If you take away the light, so there's no sensory inputs of your brain, it's not activated. It's absence of energy. It's absence of life. It's absence of happiness. So it's non-sensory activation. So the process of experiencing for a human being is activating the senses, give you more energy, makes you more happy. So that is what we learned and what we understood from the sessions we did with TNO. And then we came up with the idea of sensory reality. So for instance, if you drive in your car, imagine you drive to the mountains, and you will see a very nice image of the nice nature, but your windows are closed. The moment you step out of the car, you really immersed full sensory into the experience, because you also feel the wind, you also smell the air, and you feel the temperature. So all your brain is being activated on multiple points, and this is what makes you experience more intense the surroundings. So here's a little example of what you see when you have, for instance, an audiovisual image or input. Two parts of your brain are activated. The more parts of your brain you're activating, the more deeply your experiencing is, and that means the more lively it becomes, and the more deeper the emotional impact of the experience is, and how deeper the memory, and also how deeper the therapy, for instance. So if you look then a little bit about how from the past people like to tell stories and share experiences. If you go from a cave drawing to a music play to the invention of the radio, the TV, it's all two senses. So even the VR and the AR is really nice technology. It's really complex to make. It's fantastic, but only two parts of your brain are activated. And what happens is that your brain knows you're observing the moment you start to activate multiple senses in a 360 environment, your brain switches from the modus because it thinks it's really there, and that's experiencing. And the moment you make new combinations of stimuli, your brain is being more activated. And the more you activate your brain, the more lively you become, the better you feel. And that is a little bit what happens, for instance, if you're every day in a daily like rhythm, which is a bit of mechanical, you do the same thing every day, you will also, your brain will be a little bit bored out also as well. And so you have to break away from it sometimes. But yeah, people in hospital or care institutions, they cannot always do it. So this is a very nice way to activate the senses, activate the brain. Physically, the client or the patient will be there, but mentally he can go anywhere. So our solution, which we thought about, was a full sensory environment in a 360 surrounding, and also we can measure all your output. So your heartbeat, your heart rate variability, your skin conductance. So you can really also respond on the stimuli, and also measure how somebody responds on certain stimuli. So you can pinpoint where people's emotions are, the happiness or the sadness. So we came up with the idea to call it sensory reality, because for the senses and for the brain, the moment you pinpoint multiple points in the brain, you will think, your brain starts to think is real. So I thought, all right, virtual reality, VR, let's call it sensory reality, SR. So that's what we claimed, and also we introduced to the market earlier this year. To give a little bit of the idea, if you compare it with a phone, take a phone, use a phone, think a little bit bigger, wider, deeper. Then you have a pod, a sensory reality pod. You get it into it, and the OS, the operation system, is our platform. And with the platform, you can play full sensory experiences, and everybody in the whole world can program the audiovisual content into a full sensory experience. So any VR movie, any film, any piece of music can be sensified and shared. Yeah, this is a little bit idea of the hardware. We made it from sustainable materials on digital production. So it's very scalable, but also very sustainable. You can add all kinds of third-party technologies and add it in the box and connect it to our software and steer it into experience. We made a platform for programming experiences, and of course you can choose from it and play it in the pod. So this is the interactive part. I talked a little bit about it a little bit earlier already. So the thing is that if you measure, for instance, heart rate variability, and you measure it all day via maybe a smartwatch or something, at the end of the day you have a lot of data, but you won't know what triggered the peaks. But when you create a full sensory 360 experience in a closed cabin, then we know exactly at which second which stimuli are played, and so you can locate directly which triggers you. So that's how you can really personalize and get people steer them into like a positive state of mind. We made a whole platform so everybody can create experiences, share it on the platform. So for instance, we work a lot with some Dutch healthcare institutions. The experiences that they make, which are beneficial for the clients, they can share, and other healthcare institutions can use their content and agree with them about the terms. So it's a platform. There's also an earnings model for all parties, the content creators, for instance, the medical institutions, and also the users. We designed it together with University of Delft, with TNO, the Ministry of Defense. We made a PTSD experience to relive a trauma and to get emotion out of it by EMDR technique. There are quite some applications for this, especially in the health, people with dementia, reactivating the brain, psychotherapy, like I just mentioned, you can relive a trauma, and so you can work on it. Yeah, of course, we work with the Reshape Center in the Netherlands. This is an image about the PTSD experience. This is also a really nice one. We work with Philadelphia, which is a healthcare center for mentally disabled people. It's for activating, improving the quality of life actually for the people that are living in the daycare centers. And their results are really, really, really nice, really good. And this is an example of a hackathon because it's an open platform, and even some people from Peru came over who wanted to. He created a whole rebirth experience according to Maya knowledge, and so this is the kind of thing that you could do with our system, and that's all. I hope it's a little bit clear.
Thank you so much, Fred. This is fantastic. And Zaina had dropped a note in here indicating that they will make sure to have a Sensiks pod available during the GNHIC and ILN in-person meeting that's taking place next month. So to all of our fantastic speakers, thank you so much. And for all of you that have held on past the hour, appreciate you joining us and staying with us. So I'm going to hand this over to Cynthia to wrap us up.
Great, thank you, Gloria, and thank you again to our presenters. Today's session was recorded, and we will post a link to that recording on our member site later today, so please check out members.iln.org. We are also going to collect all of your questions that came through the chat box, as well as all of those wonderful bits of information and links, and we will send that list of links as well as answers to your questions out later on this week or early next. If you, again, would like to share this session with a colleague or find some information on our upcoming sessions, please check out members.iln.org. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a wonderful Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.